What's up, spectators? Welcome back to an episode of Chaos Child. We're actually very lucky to be having a video right now because my computer was recently compromised and some of my accounts were hacked. So I've had to do a wipe, and because of that, my save file was corrupted, and it took me several hours to try and get the game just to open, and then I had to replay it up to this point. So I'm just happy that I can play the game and record, and hopefully everything goes fine. I'm not going to try and jinx it, because there are a lot of things that seem to be breaking on me lately. Okay, so last time we were playing as the main character who had just woken up, or not been just woken up. He'd been released, and he's been in his RV, and he's been surfing the web, and that's about it. I suddenly felt a pain in my cheek. I reached up and saw that blood was coming out from the side of the bandage. The cut must have opened. As I took care of it, the red blood on my fingers stood out. Without warning, I felt a horrible sense of dread, like I was sinking into quicksand. Usually I love to have a mystery to solve, but now that the case was definitely real, I hesitated. For the rest of that night, I wasn't able to do any more research about the case. Oh, wait, yes, okay. I do think we went over this. A little bit. Yeah. Okay, this is where we stopped. Shibuya Police Station. Oh, okay, maybe we were a little bit more. It's fine, it's just a couple minutes. Repeated.
学生さん、それとも働いているのかな。あの柿田っていう男の人と何回もあのホテル行ってるよね。どういう知り合い？もし喋るのが嫌ならうなずくとか手を振るとか何でもいいからさ。ね？どうなの？
The officer sank back into her chair in resignation. Shinjo could sympathize.
なるほどな。
He'd just come to check on her a moment ago, but they'd been probably doing this since yesterday. Locked in an interrogation room, cut off from the outside world, and questioned by multiple officers, most people would lose their cool. They'd start to wonder what effects their words were having, and focus on every movement of the officer who was taking down notes. It wasn't hot in the room, but they'd sweat. But this girl didn't respond at all. It probably wasn't because she was used to it. If she'd ever been interrogated before, the fingerprints they'd taken would have told them who she was.
新庄さん。やはり連れて行った方が。
To a mental hospital, you mean? It made sense. The natural assumption was that the shock of the incident had incapacitated her. Shinjo nodded, as if considering it.
捜索願いは?
This was the second day since the incident. If she lived in a normal family environment, someone should have submitted a missing persons report by now.
洗いました。ですが、当たりません。
Shinjo watched the girl as he listened to her talk. But the girl didn't move a muscle.
家庭のことを言外に含ませても動きなしか。
The normal ways weren't going to work then. She'd been sent to the hospital by dawn at this rate.
ご苦労さん。こっちで留置しておくからもういいよ。
The other officer couldn't hide her happiness as she left the room. Shinjo sat down in the chair she'd been sitting in and took a good look at the girl from the front. She was ignoring him and still looking down at the desk. She didn't even seem to notice or care that the person in front of her had changed. Shinjo remembered his conversation with Momose. After he'd hung up, she called back in precisely 3 minutes, just like she'd promised. And then she said, "My kid has a message for you."
それだけですか? どういう意味です?
いいからそう聞いてごらんなさい。それで今の新庄ちゃんのような反応をしたり、変わらず黙ったままだったりしたら、残念だけど、非感知しか取る手段はないそうよ。 もし別の反応をしたらもう一度連絡をちょうだい。
The message didn't make much sense, but he didn't see any other way.
一つ聞きたいことがあるんだ。
There was no response, of course. He continued, uncertain if she was even hearing him.
君は持っているものに気づかれなかったのか、元から持っていないのか、どっちだ？
Her eyes moved. Instead of looking down at the desk, she was looking at Shinjo. Shinjo was surprised, but did his best to hide it.
どうなんだ？
The girl stared at him as if trying to figure him out. And then a moment later,
誰なんですか、あなたは。
her words were quiet but sharp. It was the same tone of voice that Shinjo used when he was interrogating a subject.
ここの刑事だ。君、名前は？
She seemed to be thinking about something as she stared at him. Her mannerisms were just like his own, again. It was the same way a detective faced a criminal trying to gain every scrap of information from what he could see. And then she slowly opened her mouth.
有村ひなえ、碧峰学園の学生です。
I left the motorhome where I lived alone, and only then did I realize that it was evening. The sunlight must have been pouring into my room, but I hadn't noticed. I didn't really remember when I'd gone to sleep or when I'd woken up.
大丈夫だな。
I looked around and made sure that none of the scenery had changed, and then walked up the steps in front of me. Miyashiro Park was just a few minutes' walk away from Shibuya Station. It was also known as Homeless Park. This was where I lived after I left the dorm. The first floor was a huge parking structure, and the second story had a futsal field? And a climbing wall. It had been mostly abandoned during the recovery efforts after the Shibuya earthquake. After the quake, people who'd lost their family or who never had any family to begin with gathered here en masse. Mitake Park, which was right next door, was supposed to be the evacuation point for this area, but Miyashita had always been a mecca for the homeless, so everyone gathered here. When people gathered, so did things. Containers filled with food, blankets, and tents. Even the trailer for a motorhome that was left behind when its owner fled Shibuya. Every part of the park was overhauled to create a place for people to live. The parking lot, the futsal field, the climbing wall. And the next thing anyone knew, there was a society there that was big enough that the government couldn't force them out. Sure they could if they wanted to. Then some group of idiots came out to try and turn the place into temporary housing. That was shot down in less than a month. As a result, even though you can find beautifully rebuilt skyscrapers just a street away, Miyashita Park became one of Japan's biggest slums.
これいいですか？
I spoke to the man who sold newspapers, magazines, and everything else as I picked up a newspaper with today's date, October the 1st on it.
お、タク、珍しいな新聞なんて。いいぞ、持ってけ。
いいんですか？
どうせ余るしな。それにほれ。
He showed me the snacks and alcohol at his feet. He must have sold a lot today. There were a lot of people in the park who had enough money that they could have stayed in a capsule hotel if they wanted to.
ああ、してんならできれば別のとこにな。ゴミにうるさくなってるからよ。
I thanked him and went to leave.
おいタク、電気代か。
はい。そうですけど。
ならついでに俺の分も頼む。南のまっちゃんからだっつって渡してくれ。
He handed me a 1,000 yen bill. I nodded, took it, and headed deeper into the park with my paper. So his name was Maddie. Miyashiro Park was divided into north and south halves by a road. If he said he was from the south, that must mean there was a Maddie on the north side who I hadn't met yet. The administrative office on the south side. Just like the name implied, it was where all the administration was done for Miyashiro Park. It kept things peaceful between the government and the park occupants, resolved disputes between the homeless, and maintained all the facilities at park. I knew the woman there by her face, but not her name. I gave her the electric bill, which was due on the 1st of the month, along with Maddie's part. Life in the park might seem carefree and lawless from the outside, but it was actually much stricter than you'd find in some families.
はいよ、確かに。はみ出たり、勝手に住み着こうとしているやつは
Everyone who lived on the outer rim of the park, including me since I lived in the far south, had been asked by the management to keep an eye out for that.
大丈夫だと思います。
When I looked earlier, I hadn't seen anything change around my place.
最近物騒だからね。気をつけなよ。見慣れないやつがいたらすぐに言いな。
え？
知ってんだろ？ラブホテルの事件とか。
はい、わかりました。
I was startled, but quickly nodded. I suddenly felt like they were criticizing me for hiding something. The corridor that connected the north and south ends of the park. This place, looking down on Meiji Street, was the one part that hadn't really changed since before the earthquake. There were cracks here and there, but the government had forbidden people to put things here because it would ruin the view, and might not be safe. I leaned up against the rail and spread open the newspaper with the setting sun shining down on me. There was a column on the front page about the Love Hotel incident, but no new information. There was nothing in the article about the girl who was found at the scene, or how this could be related to what happened 6 years ago. Had they not figured that out yet? Or maybe they had, and they just weren't announcing it. If it had something to do with the incident 6 years ago, then so did Don't Look at Me and Leaky Noise. Did that mean they weren't suicides? If the killer had driven them to suicide, then it was probably the same person behind 3 incidents. But was he working alone or part of a group? Or maybe people who were related somehow to the incident 6 years ago were killing themselves one after another. Maybe I should look at what the 3 cases had in common again. What the hell? My hand went up to the new bandage on my cheek. I rubbed it several times to make sure that it was still there. I took out my smartphone. The data I'd recorded at the scene had been deleted by the police. I probably should have just counted myself lucky they didn't take the phone itself. I'd lost my biggest clue to the case.
追うべきじゃないってことなのかな。
Maybe this was just out of my league. Maybe it was stupid to get involved. And then I got a call on my phone. I checked the name and hit the answer button.
はい。もしもし。
お主か。もう来ておるぞ。いつもの席じゃ。
どうも。
As always, the waitress's appearance and manners were a mystery to me. I bowed to her and went to my seat. This is an awfully hip-looking manga cafe. Sarika was there already, reading. She was fiddling with her Garo Froggy cell phone strap without realizing it, as usual. It really was a strange habit, and a nuisance to the people around her. Cafe LAX, the preferred hangout of the newspaper club, was just a 10-minute walk from Shibuya Station. The owner was a manga fan, and the walls were lined with the stuff. There was free Wi-Fi, the prices were good, and if it wasn't crowded, you could sit there for hours as long as you bought a single drink. The most important part was that since it was in a hard-to-find spot, barely anybody from Hekiho knew about it. So I didn't have to worry about running into anyone I knew. As usual, there was barely anyone there. Just a single couple that appeared to be in college. I ordered my usual Mountain View and sat down.
何読んでるんだ？
ああ、タク。そう、なんだろうこれ。
は？
適当に撮ったから。
Sarika went to put the manga back on the shelf, then came and sat back down.
はい、これ制服。のんちゃんから言われてクリーニングしといたから。
悪いな。
I took the bag containing my uniform from Sarika. It was the uniform that had gotten covered with blood at the Love Hotel.
今日、学校は？
行ってないよ。タクもでしょ？
I nodded. I hadn't felt like it at all.
のんちゃんたちに連絡は？
メールはしといた。
When I got up this morning, I sent both of them a text saying that I was okay. They both sent back responses almost immediately, but neither of them said much about what happened. They probably weren't mentioning it for my sake.
で、どうだ？大丈夫か？
うん、まあ死んでる人を見るのは初めてじゃないし。
Sarika spoke in a normal tone of voice as she drank her favorite grapefruit juice. She didn't seem like she was lying. That's how she'd been since she was a kid. It wasn't that she didn't have any feelings, she just got over them very quickly.
タクは？大丈夫？
Now that she asked, I wasn't sure how to answer the question. The waitress brought me my Mountain View. I nodded and took it. Was I okay?
嘘マジで？それ最低じゃん。
マジマジ超焦ったっつーの。空気読めっつー話でさ。
I spun the ice in my drink as I listened to the couple's irritating conversation. Sarika silently waited for my answer. I knew that face. She'd been my friend since we were kids. There was no point in trying to hide it.
正直言うと、迷ってる。
迷ってるって何を？
事件を追うかどうか。
Sarika seemed genuinely shocked.
本当に？すいません。グレープフルーツもう一つ。
Sarika raised her hand and ordered another drink.
いつものタクだったらチャンスだとか思って突っ走ってない？
That might be true, but things were different this time after what I'd gone through.
そりゃホテルは怖かったけどさ。
Sarika continued, as if she knew exactly what I was thinking.
昔都市伝説とか追っかけてた時もそうだったじゃん。ほら冒険だって言って病院に忍び込んだの覚えてる？
I nodded. I just dreamed about it.
あの時も怖かったけど、この怖さは他の人が経験してないもんなんだ、貴重なんだって泣きながらさ。
お前も泣いてたじゃん、あの時。
そうだっけ？ほれ、残すなよ。どうも。
Sarika took her glass of juice and gulped it down.
で？いや、それで？
何が？
Come on.
あ、そうか。だからさ、他の人が経験してないことを手に入れたんだからさ、それが怖かろうがなんだろうがチャンスだってタクなら言うかなって思って。
Her voice was light as she drank her juice, but her words didn't feel light at all. Something other people hadn't experienced. Something different from other people,
たまに頭いいんだか悪いんだかわからなくなるよな。
I stared at Serica's face. How much did she understand about what she was saying?
何？あ、ダメだよ。あげないよ。
She moved the juice away. I was wrong. She probably didn't realize anything. Actually, she wasn't even thinking about anything. She really was dumb.
バイトにんなこと言われてもね。
だろ？やる気がないのかってねえよ普通に。
なあ、渋谷地震の被災者のコメントの話ってしたことあったっけ？
何それ？
I was pretty sure I told her a bunch of times. Well, whatever. Time for a lecture.
地震直後の混乱が収まった後、大量のマスコミが被災者に対して押しかけただろ。まだカオスチャイルド症候群者っていう言葉がなかった頃に。
Of course, I'd been in a coma for about a year after the earthquake, so I'd only investigated it after I woke up.
その取材の論調の多くは民度の高さを訴えるものだった。これだけの震災にもかかわらず、暴動や略奪などの犯罪がほとんど起きていない。これは得難いことなんだって。実際そうなんだと思うよ。何が今一番辛いですかって聞かれた時、大半の被災者が地方の家族に自分の無事を伝えてやれないこととか、子供に好物を与えてやれないこととか、とにかく他人を心配しててさ。でもそんな中で一人の被災者が言ったんだよ。
I remembered what they said word for word. It had left a huge impression on me.
頑張れという部外者。正直うなずいたよ。心底。
They said exactly what I was thinking. I didn't know who they were, but I admired them anyway. Those feelings were the exact opposite of all the excited, fired up people on the outside.
これを言った人は僕に近い人だっていう気がするんだ。ただ一連の出来事をネットで見ていた他人とは違う。そしてただ被災しただけの人とも違う。
タクの両親のこと？あ、そういえば復興祭合わせの飲み、テニサーの連中も来るって。
マジで？そしたら絶対タク飲みじゃ無理じゃん。
I was different. I was different than the people who just lived normal lives in Shibuya. I ripped the bandage off my cheek. The wound had closed up. My face was back to normal. I was back to normal. The case was right in front of me. I had a huge mystery to investigate. I wasn't about to just be caught up in something. As a right-sider, it was my job to jump right into the middle of all this information, right? I could feel something like excitement mixed with a sense of duty welling up inside me. I couldn't stop myself from smiling.
また危険な目に遭うかもしれないぞ。
事件のこと？
I nodded. Sakura laughed, a little strangely. And then for some reason she patted me lightly on the shoulder. I didn't know what that meant, but I started to laugh too. Sarika nodded.
よし、それならまずラブホテルの事件から行こっか。
Sarika took out her Pokecom. She typed into it with a practiced hand. She seemed to be loading a video file.
なんだそれ。
これ現場でタクが撮ってた録画データ、警察に消される前にストレージに上げておいたの。
By the time I got back home, the sun had long since set, and it was past 8 p.m. I realized that I'd barely eaten anything since arriving at the Love Hotel, and suddenly felt very hungry, so I'd eaten a meal at LAX.
そういえばこないだ来た時から気になってたんだけど、電気ポット変わった？前はもっと。あ、ここ物置にしたんだ。
Serica had followed me home. She'd started to glance around the room and offer her opinions on the way it was laid out. She would open drawers and be surprised even though there was nothing important inside, or look at new files about the cases and tell me their contents at a glance. She always was a little strange. She'd be surprised by the most obvious things, but sometimes she would show startling insight. And wait.
なんかテンション高いな。
She laughed another strange laugh.
事件を追うのが楽しいのか？
というより、ただやりたいことは行けるところまで行かないと気持ち悪いだけ。結果はどうあれ、そうじゃないと意味ないじゃん。人間いつ死ぬかわかんないんだから。せっかく今死んでないのに。
I see, I thought. She was right. A sound came from my PC. The copy operation was finished.
よし。そしたら元のストレージのやつは削除してくれ。
なんで？
物が物だからな。他の人間に見られたら困る。
このストレージ、私が個人的に使ってるやつだから大丈夫だよ。
それでもだ。誰でもアクセスできる可能性は少しでも潰しておきたい。そうだな。お前のポケコンのやつも念のため削除してくれ。
オッケー。タク、何してるの
？Positive, of course. She looked over at me while she rifled through my bookcases.
カッコン島を作る。
カッコン島？どこの島？
Are you serious?
飲み物だよ。ゲンさんにもらった。吐き気を抑える効果があるんだ。
へえ、よく知ってるね。
へへ。And then some information I'd found before flashed across my mind. Of course, it was from Cool Cat Press. I'd read about it in a certain special they'd run. If you put eye drops into a beer, it'll make a girl feel aroused. I feel like that just makes people really sick? At the time, I hadn't believed it. In another issue, they said that eye drops and cola would make a girl go to sleep. Oh. Okay. Why would people... Okay. Adding eye drops into a drink would create unusual side effects. I'd heard a rumor that was just an urban legend, though. But what would happen if you put eye drops into Kakonto? There was a stupid teenage girl who didn't even know what Kakonto was right in front of me. Should I try it? I prepared 2 cups like it was the most natural thing in the world and poured out the Kakonto I'd made. Okay. This seems like something that would be in the negative one, but it's in the positive one. So, okay. Taking special care that Serica wouldn't see me, I added a few drops of eye drop medicine from my shelf into her drink. This is how people die. I gave her the cup, acting very naturally.
ありがとう。
She took a drink without suspecting a thing. I gulped as I watched her.
何？どうかした？
いや。
これまずい。薬みたい。
漢方薬だからな。
With added eye drops, to be precise. I decided to watch and see what happened.
っていうか、なんだか。
Well, I guess what could happen is positive, neutral, or negative. Maybe he always puts the eye drops in. But this will be like Oh, I am drunk. I don't know. I
こ
don't
の
know.
部屋暑くない？
Sarika's cheeks seemed a little pink, and she seemed to be kind of spacing out. Was it starting to work already? I didn't expect it to work so fast. Oh, the poison? You didn't expect the poison to work so fast?
ねえタク、なんか私すっごく変な感じなんだけど。
It's probably your organ shutting down. Her breathing was getting shallower. She was fidgeting and rubbing her thighs together. She was clearly behaving differently than she usually did. Way to go, Cool Cat Press! Dead.
ちょっとトイレ借りる。
トイレ？何する気だ？
それは内緒。
内緒ってお前大丈夫なのか？なあ、トイレで何をするつもりだ？
Wow, okay. No.
いけないことだよ。
Well, I'm certainly uncomfortable now.
は？
I was before, even more now.
バカ。
そうか。別にトイレ行くのはいいけど。
別にトイレ行きたい。
え？
And thankfully that's over now. Her cheeks weren't flushed. Her expression was normal.
どうしたの急に。
いや、別に。
I desperately tried to recover as I drank my own Kokonto. I hadn't found any eye drops on the shelf, so I'd given up on the experiment. So you're telling me you would have done it? Once again revealing more about this person's personality. Sarika complained about the taste, but swallowed it down anyway.
それにしてもゲンさんいい人だよね。好きだな私。
酒癖の悪さはどうにかしてほしいけどな。
でもタクが公園で気許してるのってゲンさんだけでしょ。やっぱりいい人だよ。
Was that why? Well, he did help me out a lot.
オッケー、削除したよ。
Sarika put away her Pokecom. Alright. I booted up the laptop next to the wall and sat down in the chair that folded out into a bed. As I went to load the video file into the player software, I happened to glance at its length.
26分？そんなにあの部屋にいたか？
Oh, this seems like it was going to be interesting. I thought it might be a short clip, but it seems like it might be quite a bit in here. So why don't we end this video here at about 34 minutes, and we'll pick this up again next time. So, stay tuned, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye!